Well, we're joined now by Robert Gordon, who is an Animal Rebellion spokesperson and supporter. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. How did you decide which stores and which areas you were going to target with this spilling of milk and placards in front of meat products?
Yeah, well, right-wing commentators would have you believe that we picked these high-end supermarkets because it's all we know, because that's where mummy and daddy took us as kids. But in reality, we're just a group of really concerned individuals who have carefully picked these high-end shops because we acknowledge that when we take action, there's an inevitable level of disruption that will be caused. And we really didn't want to be disrupting those who are suffering most in the cost of living crisis. So, we picked the Fortnum and Masons, the Selfridges, the M&S's. And we're sorry for those people who did get caught in that disruption. But frankly, at this point, we don't have a choice. As you read out, the leading scientists are telling us that we don't have a livable future unless we make dramatic changes now, and that a plant-based future, transition to a plant-based future, is necessary. And I'm sure you'll agree, we have a shambles of the government at the moment who are failing in their bare minimum duty of care. So how can we expect them to take on such a serious crisis? So we need to employ direct action. We need more people to step up into civil resistance.
I mean, I completely take what you're saying about targeting the high-end shops so that you're not making the most vulnerable in society even more vulnerable. Did you worry about the optics, though? Because this made me think of, I don't know if you remember when Jamie Oliver was protesting against 2-for-1 offers and the obesity crisis, and he encouraged people to take eaten messes to Parliament to protest with. And my first thought was, that seems a little tone deaf during a cost of living crisis when you think all of that food is going to go to waste. Did you worry about the optics of wasting milk during a time when so many people are struggling to put food on the table?
100%. And I think the first thing to acknowledge is that these actions that evoke an emotion are sometimes the most effective and most powerful. And it's also really important to acknowledge that in the UK, we waste around £150 million worth of dairy milk each year. That's about 7% of all we produce. So the milk we spilt today, a couple of pints, is tiny in comparison, but it has really generated this critical national conversation in a way that we haven't seen before. And that conversation is that we need to transition to a plant-based future, and we need the government to support farmers in this transition. And if they do so, we can have a much more efficient food system that uses far less land, and we can return that land to the countryside, rewild it, draw down carbon from the atmosphere, and restore precious biodiversity and restore our beautiful wildlife.
And what has the response been like from the public? Do you think that your message was conveyed with the publicity that you've been able to garner through this action?
It's always mixed. As I said, these polarizing actions evoke emotions from people on both sides of the spectrum. But we have received a lot of support for sure. And some of the most favorable comments have come from, for example, the vegan community, who you'd think would be on side with this. But they see, when we're wasting milk, that a calf has died for, because people often forget that dairy milk, to be bottled, cows, like any mammal, they need to first have a baby. So they're forcibly impregnated, and their calf when born is killed so that we can bottle this milk for human consumption. And obviously there's a huge tragedy there. And we say that that's a completely unnecessary practice, especially in a nation of animal lovers. And that the milk is wasted the second it doesn't go to the calf. And it doesn't matter if it ends up on the floor or in our bellies. The waste is the loss of life there, and that we can have a plant-based future where that is completely unnecessary.
Robert Gordon, Animal Rebellion spokesperson and supporter, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Well,